So, Mike Gomoll lost his 5-year-old son, Joey, to Dravet Syndrome, a rare and brutal form of epilepsy. Mike then started a small acoustic night at a Chicago bar in Joey's memory. 15 years later, that night has become Freezing Man, a festival that fills a 2,500 capacity venue in Madison, Wisconsin, with over 35 artists from Guns N' Roses, Cheap Trick, The Go-Go's, Tears for Fears, The Bangles, and Goo Goo Dolls. Every one of them plays for free. Welcome to the show today, Mike. Glad to have you on. Disclaimer. Any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. So, Mike, where did this idea of doing a small acoustic night come from? This is obviously something that sparked in Joey's memory.
Yeah. So, actually the idea of trying to do something to help was in my brain even before Joe had passed. The epilepsy that he had was particularly rare and particularly heinous. He was going to need a lot of 24/7 care if he had lived. And so while he was still alive, we were just trying to get to bedtime. He had an older brother and sister. So the idea of starting a charity was not really realistic. But after we lost Joe, the family and I decided we needed to do something. As we say in Joey's song, we needed to help the next family. Right now somebody is sitting in a neurologist's office with the child on their lap and getting a diagnosis that is scary and unknown, unpredictable, and the whole bit. And they need to know that somebodies are out there fighting for them. And so I went through all the different ways you can raise money, and there's a lot of ways that people do it, golf tournaments and walks and galas and the usual smorgasbord of ways. But back in the 80s, when I was still in college, I was fortunate. One of my running mates back in the day was a guy called Butch Vig. And Butch is known for producing Nirvana's Nevermind and Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream and Green Day and, go down the list. Even to the pinnacle, which I think is the pinnacle. He won a Grammy for producing a single with Sir Paul McCartney. So when you're in the music business and you're working with Paul McCartney, that's pretty much the toppermost of the poppermost right there. So decided to pick music as the way to do things and raise money, since that's kind of a universal language, and it just felt a little bit different, and it felt like a way for people. And to be really honest with you, Johnny, it was a way where we could get people that weren't even necessarily understood what epilepsy was to come and join us, right? If you've got it doesn't matter, some form of disease event, a walk or golf tournament, usually need people who already know about it, that are part of that. Well, with the music, if you like the artists that we have, you might come and you might learn a little something about epilepsy. So it was a need that we had to try to, as I said, help the next family. And so we started small, which is, the only way we could think of doing it. And now all of a sudden it's blossomed into this.
Wow, into this huge thing.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow, that's powerful. For anyone who's not as familiar with what epilepsy is,
Yeah.
What is it? How would you describe it?
Yep. So my analogy has not been approved by an epileptologist, so they may be scoffing when they hear this, but I think about it as back in the day when we were all on our old Windows computers and you would get the blue screen of death, right? You tried to do something that the computer didn't like, and all of a sudden that blue screen would pop up and it would just say shutting down. That's because the computer tried to do two things at once that it couldn't do, or that contradictory. That's how I describe what happens with a seizure in somebody's brain. Now, there's multiple causes and multiple manifestations. It can be a tumor or a head injury, or in my son's case, chromosomal issues. And when the communication wasn't going right, that's the body's defense mechanism that says, I'm just going to shut down. No more of this. Stop what you're doing. I've got mixed messages. It's almost like a self-preservation thing for the brain. That's what I say is going on. And the way that it shuts down can be those, what a lot of people call grand mal. They're really called tonic-clonic seizures, right? Where the person is shaking, or they have absent seizures where they just kind of stare off. There's lots of different ways it manifests itself. but it's all the body's way of shutting down and stopping you from doing what it thinks is harmful, which is cross messages in the brain.
I've got you. No, thanks for describing that. And yeah, is it quite how common is it for like people?
Yeah, really common. 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy in their lifetime. There are 50 million people worldwide that have epilepsy today. Um, and one out of every three of those people can't get control of their seizures with medicine or surgery. So whatever the math is, whatever 1/3 of 50 million is, that's the number of people that don't know from 1 minute to the next whether they're going to have a seizure, whether they're going to end up in the back of an ambulance, as my son did many times. The other way I try to get people to visualize that, if you live in a neighborhood where there's 8 houses and each house has 4 people in it, the odds are one person in your neighborhood is going to have epilepsy. The other way to think about it is think about your nearest football stadium. And I always do it with easy numbers because math isn't my forte. If it's a 26,000 seat stadium, that means 1,000 people in that stadium are going to develop epilepsy in their lifetime. So it's pretty common, but it's also very hidden because you can't tell if somebody has epilepsy unless they have a seizure, right in front of you. There's no physical manifestation of it other than that.
And can you develop? I know your son was very young. Can you develop it at any age?
At any age and at any time. It's not uncommon for older people to develop it. A lot of our first responders and military develop epilepsy because a knock in the head can cause it. Tumors, both benign and cancerous, and sometimes just the way the brain develops. Anything that causes it to not communicate all the time the way it should. So yes, no, everyone can be susceptible to epilepsy. My sons came at birth, but other people in their teens and older adults are susceptible to it too.
And does it get quite a lot of funding into it from like people?
Oh, now you're hitting it. No, it's because it is so hidden, right? Because you can't, and people don't express that they have epilepsy. It's only been 100 years since we as a species decided that it wasn't demons or witches or spells that were causing these seizures, right? So, and where we finally figured out it was a physical issue. But you add to that the fact that, as I said, someone walking down the street, if someone's walking down the street and they have multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy, there can be visual signs. You can go, oh, okay, yep. Or, but that's not the case with epilepsy. And the fact that when it does manifest itself to the person having it, it can be embarrassing, right? It's not, you lose consciousness, you drop down in public and you start shaking. Not many people would sign up for that. You can't tell how many people have epilepsy, right? It's not out in front, and it's not the kind of thing that comes up at parties. So it tends to be less visible. This is how I put it, at least here in the States. This is how I put it. Cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, and cystic fibrosis combined do not have as many people suffering from them as have epilepsy. Yet epilepsy research lags any one of those four as far as medical funding. So it's more common than those four and gets less funding than any one of those individually. So if that puts it in kind of a perspective for you.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
interesting.
mean, and I don't say that to say that those shouldn't have funding. All of those things
Oh
need
yeah,
to be
sure.
eradicated
Yeah,
and addressed.
sure. But I love the work you're doing. You've managed to fund quite a lot towards it, right? From
Yeah, we've done certainly not what I expected 15 years ago when it was a couple guys and some acoustic guitars in a sports bar. No, not what we had intended.
wow. Yeah, and do you find like people's like awareness kind of like comes up a lot more about, oh, I didn't know what that was. Have you been able to turn that a lot more?
Here, yeah, in two ways. Yes, that where people learn about it, my chance to talk to you and your listeners, as well as other opportunities that I have to talk about it. But the other thing that it does is it can be a very lonely disorder,
Mm.
right? Because there are some things, if you're an adult with uncontrolled seizures, you can't drive a car because you can't be behind the wheel of a car and
Mm.
have a seizure, right? And there's lots of jobs that you can't have. So it tends to lead to isolation and loneliness too. And so by having us out in front of it, talking about it loudly, And when a lot of people with epilepsy come to the concerts, they see John Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls, or Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, or Kurt Smith from Tears for Fears on stage in front of 1,000 people, 2,000 people talking about it. So it manifests itself in a couple different ways, both from people learning directly about it from Joey's song, and people learning that are in the community, learning it's okay to talk about it. Celebrate it is the wrong word, but not be ashamed of it or embarrassed about it is another side benefit to what we do.
Got you. Is there a certain precautions you have to take at this festival as well with epilepsy as well, with maybe the lighting and things like that?
That's exactly, you hit right at it. Flashing lights, strobe lights are a known trigger for epilepsy. So while we can do a light show, we don't do any of the fast switching stuff. That tends to be the biggest part. For some people, loud noises can also be a trigger, but they would know enough not to come to as bad as it, although we do live stream the show so they can watch it at home on their computer as well. But yeah, the lights are the big trigger. And so our lighting guy, Michaela, who's been doing it for a long time with us, knows that, don't hit the strobe button.
I've got you. Yeah, just for precautions on that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool about the live stream as well, because loud noises, I'd imagine, is a bit unavoidable in person, right? So
yeah. Well, and the other reason that we do the live stream, because we do the concerts it's the second weekend in January, and we do them here in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's a little cold here in the winter, and not everybody wants to come to Madison. That's why we call it Freezing Man. It's kind of a takeoff on Burning Man. We kind of lean into the fact that it's
I just forgot about that. Yeah.
That it's winter in Wisconsin. And so we also live stream it, and it builds our community. You can watch this at your home in Bangalore or Bristol or, Botswana, anybody around the way, and it's free. We don't charge for the live stream. So we do it for that reason as well, because it is about raising awareness. It is about raising the consciousness of it besides the money. So we want everybody to become a part of our community. But it certainly helps the folks that would want to see the show but can't because of the loud noise. And even some of them might still be scared of the lights, even if, they know we're not going to do a strobe. What if the guy accidentally hits the button? And, so we try to be as inclusive as possible.
I got you, reaching like a huge amount of people.
Yeah.
But no. So can people with epilepsy, do they need to have someone with them?
It's a personal choice. Okay. Many people with epilepsy live alone or as normal. It really depends on. So in the community, we call them the epilepsies, plural, because there's not one epilepsy cause and there's not one epilepsy way that it manifests itself. So depending on, and most people after they've had it for a while start to know their rhythm and their pattern and how it manifests itself. So if you do have the kind where there's a threat, they call it staticus epilepticus. I can't even say it. Basically, the seizure won't stop. Normally, a seizure of any of the kind resolve themselves after a minute or two. The brain kind of resets, but sometimes it doesn't. And people that are susceptible to that then probably can't live alone. But if you're the kind of person that is not, your epilepsy doesn't manifest itself that way, you're probably okay. It would be a personal choice, but I know many folks, many adults that have epilepsy that do live alone and get on just fine. But if you do have uncontrolled seizures, that means if you do have a job, you have to take the bus. If whatever it might be. Fortunately, in today's world with at-home delivery of groceries and everything else, it's a little less inconvenient for those people. But it really depends on all the circumstances. It is possible.
I've got you. Okay, that makes sense. But again, it's great to hear that you're creating that, like, people not feeling so alone as well.
Correct.
Which sounds like a really important part of your work.
I think so.
I love that. So Joey's song, is that a particular song, or is it kind of like?
No. Yeah, great question. So Joe, the Dravet syndrome that Joe had made him nonverbal. He was not able to speak, but he loved music and he could sing in his own unique way and dance. And in that young age, he was into Teletubbies and Elmo, right? And Elmo, for everybody that knows, has Elmo's song, Elmo's song. So when we were looking to name our charity, that seemed to be a logical way to get his name in it and kind of pay tribute to it. So no, it's really just the name of the organization. But since we present music, it's kind of wherever you put the emphasis on Joey's song or Joey's song, you know what I mean? It's kind of plays both ways, but it's really just the name of the organization.
Oh wow. Okay, got you. So he is quite playful and dancey.
Oh my gosh.
Love it.
People ask about what he was like. And whenever if there were people around and music came on, Joe made it his mission in life to make sure that everybody got up and was dancing. So if we had some people over, or even if it was just the family sitting around and Teletubbies came on or Elmo came on, Joe would go over to everybody and grab their hand to make sure that they were standing up. And it was just dancing like this, but he was bound and determined to make sure that everybody was happy and enjoying the music. That was his mission, which you have to have a mission in life. Making sure everybody's happy and singing and dancing is a pretty good one to have.
I love that. I love that. That was his. Yeah, Mike, I know you went through a tough time, like dark time after that, and you've done something beautiful and amazing, creating awareness. Like for someone going through quite like a tough time, a loss themselves, maybe in whatever circumstance,
Yep.
how did you begin to navigate that for yourself?
Well, first, my advice to anybody is lean into the grief. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the emotions, because a lot of us want to, you know, at least here in the Midwest of the US, right? It's all buckle down and, all that, those stereotypes that go with it. My advice to people is to lean into it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed. It's your grief. There's no manual for the right way and the wrong way to grieve, as long as it's not harmful, right? It's okay to be extra sad, or however you need to be. That's the advice that I give to people. And an example of how it's different is my wife and I. My wife went through it. I did a little bit of that, keeping it inside, and I started Joey's song in full speed ahead because that's my nature. It's not my wife's nature, and she was much more into the emotion side of it. Worked for her and it worked for me. A lot of times when parents lose a child, the marriage is the next casualty of it. It's very common for that to happen. I don't have the numbers in front of me. So my wife and I also look at it as, we each did it our own way, but it's a way that allowed us to stay together for our other kids and move forward to where we are now. So it's really, you have to find your comfort, and you have to, again, making sure that it's not harmful to you or others, because there can be ways to go through it that aren't super great on you or those around you. But don't deny it. Don't, just, I guess, lean into it is the best way I can say it, and go with whatever that emotion is, because it is yours. It's your grief. It's your journey. It's your life. It's your past. It's your future. Just do you, you know?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Lean into things and deal with how, be yourself, kind of.
Yeah,
What you're
go
saying.
with your feelings, right? And like I said, I always put that harmfulness on there, because there's other ways to deal with it that can involve stuff that isn't so great. But if you want to be sad, be sad. If you want to, just, it's okay.
Got you. And then starting out this like live acoustics, how long was it after kind of that process? Not that there's ever a timeline, by the way.
Right.
Of course.
Well, you mean when we started doing the shows?
Yeah, after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Literally about 2 months after Joe, I had been thinking about doing something even when Joe was still with us. But as I said earlier, having two kids, 8 and 6 or 10 and 8, whatever Julia and Sam were at the time, his brother and sister, we were just trying to make it to bedtime because I had a job and, all that other stuff. So it had been percolating in my head anyway. And then when we lost Joe, my way of handling with it was to fight back in a positive way, which was to do this. So I already had an outline in my head. So we lost Joe in March of 2010, and the first benefit was January of 2011. So we kind of got right to it.
Mm. How do you how do you get the word out about this event now? How does it spread?
Well, I will tell you, it's gotten a lot easier the last couple of years when I've got these bigger names to mention. You know, at first it was local musicians because I didn't know where this was going to lead. But when you can mention to people bands like the ones we've listed, Goo Goo Dolls and Cheap Trick and Guns N' Roses and Tears for, there's some Rock and Roll Hall of Famers in there. Most of them have been Grammy winners or nominees.
Mm.
So it's really about get it's about getting to the people so that the message is much easier to deliver now than it used to be, right? Because now I can explain that. So we use the channels that everybody does. We use social media. I'm really fortunate here locally. All of the radio stations, even the competing ones, all let me come on all the time and talk about it. We've got a TV sponsor. Podcasts like this is a way to do it too, especially since you don't have to be local to participate. And it's finding a way to cut through all of the noise that's out there. And as we all know, that phone creates a lot of noise, not necessarily audio noise, visual noise. And how do you cut through it? It's fortunate most people of our generation, the next generation below, are able to recognize those names, and they'll at least stop for a second and give us an ear when we say those bands.
Mm. Were there times when it was quite tough to like reach
Oh,
people and get it out?
it, oh my God. I got to tell you, Johnny, so we've been doing this for 15 years. And there are still times when I'll be in a setting and somebody will ask me what I do. And I say, oh, I'm retired, but I do this. And I describe it and they go, oh, that sounds great. I'd love to go see that. And they're, local residents here in town. I want to just scream because we've done everything we can do other than knock on everybody's door and do it. It's just that people are really busy and getting their attention is hard. But like I said, at least now they'll stop and listen. In the earlier days, when the names of our artists weren't quite as famous and popular, people just kind of had it in their mind that it was probably the local dad band, playing AC/DC and the Stones as opposed to what it is. So it's really hard. And the other reason it's really hard is there's a lot of worthwhile charities out there. That's the other thing I had to get over early on when I was trying to get sponsors and support on this was, no, ours is really special. And I realize it's special to me, but we're no better than Special Olympics or the American Heart Association or, any of the other organizations that are trying to improve the lot of people around us. And so there's just, I keep using the phrase, but there's just a lot of noise and finding ways to get through. Because the good news is because we're really unique, I mean, there's no other event that I know of that's like ours. Once I can get the message to you, you don't have to be interested, but you'll probably listen for a minute or two to determine if it's something you want to learn more about.
Mm. So you kept going, even getting through that noise. Sounds like you had a
Just,
real, you're really tied to your cause and getting it out.
yeah, I tell people I'm not a kind of person that feels like it's a calling. That's not the kind of person I am. And I'm certainly not the kind of person that thinks this was done for a reason. If it is, I need to talk to people that determine those reasons because that's, taking my son. I don't know what that reason would be. But I will tell you, I do feel like it's an opportunity. And I would
Mm.
be negligent in my, what I owe humanity if I didn't do it, right? I'm fortunate to have known Butch back in the day where I can call on him. And I'm fortunate now that we have this network of people that I can call to do it. There's a lot of charities that would give, a body part to have one of these artists come and play their benefit, and I get all these people to come and do it. So um, I, I feel like I owe that sounds so self-aggrandizing. I feel like I owe this though. I feel like I have this opportunity, do it as long as I'm capable of doing it.
An opportunity. Wow,
Yeah.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah. And you've got all these dolls as well in the background. We are saying these figures. If you're listening, Mike's got a lot of these different bands and things that he's collected.
Yeah. I am not a musician. I'm exactly whatever the opposite of a musician is. But I love music. It's been a part of my life. I worked my way through college as a disc jockey, and it's always been a part of who I am. And there's a lot of bands, what Johnny's referring to around me, that mean a lot to me. And their music has gotten me through good times and bad. I think most of us can hear a song and it puts us to a state of mind, either something good or something bad. We think of a
Mm.
certain girl, or we think of a certain hard time, or we think, whatever it might be. And so I like to have those things around me. There, I've got my guys from REM up above me and their Simpsons characters that I'm pointing to up here. And I've got, the Beatles, which are my alpha and omega. And I've got Oasis right there. There's Liam and Noel, not the real ones, just the dolls.
Yeah.
The Stones around me. And it's my way of staying connected to music, because certainly me singing or playing the guitar is not a good way for me to stay connected to music, at least if there's anybody listening.
Same. I've no
Yeah.
musical talent.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, wow. Yeah, and there's a good resonate of what you said about music having an impact on you, like on the person as well, emotionally as well. It can be make you feel good, and then there's some songs that maybe you're trying to get some sadness out as well.
Yeah, and it's very much like we talked about with the grief. I choose to lean into it. If a song makes you sad, some people will fast forward. It's like I think living your emotions is part of being a person, and that's not always easy for people to do. But I think when you can, and music is kind of a way to do it in 3-minute segments, right?
Yeah, and they're short little ones. Yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah.
be in a place where actually, and I remember someone, a breathwork teacher or master, talking about, and she wrote a book about allowing yourself to feel the emotions, and music was one of the key ways she mentioned, like getting some tears out, which actually can be quite, well, I've experienced it be quite curing because actually it calms
Oh,
the nervous
yes.
system as well sometimes. So, yeah,
It can be quite cathartic. It's like instead of bottling it up and scrunching it, let it flow. I agree completely.
let it flow. Yeah, I've certainly experienced that. Mike, I'd love to know. Obviously, you're doing all this work out there. You're like really trying to raise the awareness, and you are raising the awareness. You're raising the funds for it as well. As we sort of like wrap up today, where is the best place for people to get involved, find out more about
Yep.
this?
Yep.
And is there maybe a final point you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah. So one of the fortunate things of having a unique name like Joey's Song is you can get all the really good handles on social media. So on all the social medias, we're all Joey's Song. Remember to put the two S's in there. So JoeySsong. Our website is joeysong.org. So if you just remember the name, you'll find us. And that's the best way to keep up with what we're doing. In about a month and a half, we'll start announcing our artists for January. I will tell you, it's not the best kept secret. One of the real benefits we have is our artists keep coming back. So if you go to the website right now, and all the artists we have up there from 2026, most of them are going to be there for 2027, plus some new ones. We always add a few people each year. So follow us on social media. That's where we make all the announcements. We also run clips from previous concerts to kind of keep people's appetite whet. And if you go to the website, joeysong.org, and join our mailing list, we won't spam you. We won't try to sell you aluminum siding. We just use it to communicate. We do pre-show sales, for the folks on the mailing list to buy tickets and so on. That's the way to do it. Now, you ask if I've got a closing message. I do. So the one thing everybody can do for us that doesn't cost them a penny, it only costs them a couple minutes, is two things. One is on all those medias, whatever you do, please give us a follow, not just a like, because the algorithms like that. So if you're a Facebook person or an Instagram person or a LinkedIn person, find Joey's Song and follow it. That helps immensely. And then the other thing you can do is tell a friend. Just tell one other person. Talk about it as you can. Say, hey, on Johnny's podcast, I heard this interesting thing, because that's really, I think we all pay extra attention when someone we know or trust says, hey, you should try this product, or you should, I found this, we all do it with TV shows and music. We can do it with a charity. So if you can tell 2 or 3 people and get them, because you never know who it's going to really affect. So our strength comes from the size of our community. And since we don't charge you to be in our community, join us.
I love it. And yeah, Mike, you've given us so many awarenesses and insights about like epilepsy and like how it can impact people like differently, and visiting your website, your socials, and mailing lists as well. That's going to just help people get educated, and like Mike
Correct.
says, just spreading the word, because like Mike was sharing with the stats, there's a lot of people impacted than we realize, and it's not always obvious. You've shared today as well.
Yeah, it can be, and it can be such a lonely disease. Is I also think talking about it may help people you'll never meet or never know, right? But if it becomes something that's not a stigma that people aren't embarrassed about, who knows who that might affect, that might reach out for help that hadn't in the past. So there's so many ways that people can help that don't involve spending any money or even a whole lot of time, that can have impact that you may never know, but trust me, it helps.
Absolutely. No. Thank you, Mike. So you can find all of those links to Mike's socials, to Joey Song's socials, to the website, to the mailing list in the show notes below this episode. So, Mike, a final thank you from me today.
Johnny, cheers. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. So that concludes today's episode. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.